Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Ruby Rogues podcast. This week on our panel, we have Ayush Nuatia.
Hello, hello.
I'm Charles Max Wood from Top End Devs. And this week, we have a special guest. We have Muhammad Hassan. Mohammed, you built Litestack, which is pretty cool. What else should people know about you?
Well, I've been doing Ruby for a long while now. I guess 2005 or something. I've been in this industry for a long while. I go by the handle Old Mo for a reason. I think, yeah, it's literally Old Mo, and I've been doing computers since 1990 something. So yeah, I have a lot of work that has been done in the Ruby land, especially in concurrency. I've released the library long ago, if anyone remembers. It was called Never Block once Fibers started. And I got fascinated by this idea of like high concurrency and doing high performance stuff in Ruby. And then afterwards, I also got in love with embedded databases, SQLite to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm marrying the two. So like high performance Ruby, high performance embedded database, SQLite in particular, and I've been doing that with my own work in my own startups, and looking forward now to actually deliver something to the community that will, spread this value to everyone that is using both Ruby and SQLite.
Cool. So I looked at it, and you can correct me where I'm wrong. I didn't have a chance to try it because my life is absolutely nuts. You think the kids get out of school, your life gets less than nuts. It doesn't. So yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm sitting here thinking, wow, because I remember back in the day, SQLite was kind of the not serious database. You'd use it in development, and then you'd use a real database like PostgreSQL. But with Litestack, it looks like you provide the database, which is kind of obvious, but then you're also pulling in stuff like caching and jobs. And yeah, do you want to just talk about all of this? Because
yes,
you pull in just one gem and it does all this stuff.
Yes, I think one the biggest issue here was the amount of dependencies you need when you start a new Rails app. Like you need like a database naturally,
yeah,
and then you need some cache server, and then things go a little bit crazy, and you make a cluster of those cache servers, and then you need a job processor, and you need a queue for that job processor. So you have Redis, for example, and then a process for Sidekick or something like that. And then you need full text search. So you use something like Elastic or OpenSearch, and then you need cable capabilities. So you need a PubSub server, and you have usually Redis for that as well, or Postgres, and you end up with so many dependencies and so many moving parts in your application. And I was thinking of making SQLite your database is nice, but like limiting it to just database means it's only limited to smallish applications that only require a database. But actually, SQLite, due to its like latency characteristics, is capable of a lot more. And I went out to try and see if I can actually prove that it is capable of a lot more. And so, yeah, a database, a cache, PubSub, queue, job processor, full text search, everything you'd need for, not everything, but almost everything you'd need for your application. And currently in the repo, but not released, is LiteKD, which is Cradis basically, ported to SQLite. So you won't need for your key data another separate process running somewhere in your infrastructure.
Very cool. I have to say, like, I switched over to what is it? The caching and queuing that
Solid.
Solid Cache and Solid Queue that DHH came out with. Sorry, folks, I'm a little slow. I am under the weather big time. but this looks so cool. I just wanted to talk through it. And so I was super excited to get rid of Redis, right? Because I haven't been using Action Cable a ton. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of, and I've also been using Melee Search, and I've been trying to move that into my Postgres database as well. Just use Postgres full text search. So this appeals to me a lot because my stack gets a lot simpler.
Yes, definitely. I think there are two dimensions here. One of them is simplifying the stack, and one of them is actually realizing the huge potential in having an embedded database. So one way to simplify the stack is to move everything to Postgres. Postgres is very capable. It's very solid, and it's been there since forever, and you can rely on it. But what my thesis is, there is a new dimension of performance when you go embedded, like a completely different thing. I think in Brighton Ruby, I presented what it takes for a query to run if you go through like a client server stack versus an embedded stack. And what you get is basically you're doing, for most reads, you're doing a memory call. And that's a huge advancement in performance that you'll only appreciate it if you see it. Once you see that your Rails application is able to deal with like potentially thousands of concurrent connections and responding to them very quickly, you'll have to see it to believe it, basically.
Very cool. Ayush, have you played with this?
I haven't actually had a chance to play with it. SQLite and Rails has been something that's been on my to-do list for a while, but well, life gets in the way.
Right.
I think my next project is almost definitely going to be my next side project is definitely going to be SQLite rather than Postgres. But yes, I just want to get very clear in my head about some of the gotchas with SQLite. And well, let's start with just what Litestack actually does in certain things, like with Light Job and with Light Cable and like Light KD. You said like Light Cable uses like PubSub. It's like a drop-in replacement, right? And Light KD replicates credits. So are these building on like native SQLite features of like PubSub and a key value store, or
no? SQLite is a little bland than that, so it doesn't have like something like Notify in Postgres. And I had to build this functionality into SQLite on top of SQLite itself, but on top of native SQLite. So by the way, the Solid family of products like Solid Cache, Solid Queue, they do have SQLite support. But the problem is they do deliver that on through Active Record, which is like an order of magnitude more abstracted than going native with SQLite like directly, and hence the SQLite performance. If you go directly to the metal, it's a much faster. And the nice thing about what we have in Litestack is that we have the SQL code completely decoupled from the Ruby logic, so you can optimize that independently and work on ensuring, yes, every call is through an index. You're not walking tables or doing any table scans, things of that sort. So it's I guess it's implemented, but the functionality is not that hard. I guess it's really straightforward, getting a cable and getting it to perform. The problem, the real core issue, would be to get it to perform correctly under like concurrent operation, which is tricky, and because you don't know whether the application will run in threads, will run in fibers, multiple processes or not. And this is, I think, the core contribution of Litestack, which it abstracts all this and makes sure any component can be brought up very quickly. Like I built Light Cable in 1 hour.
Oh wow, okay.
Because all the machinery there for like making sure that pooling of connections, threads don't go into race conditions, and processes are not affecting each other. That was there already. So you only get to implement the logic of the higher level. Of course, 1 hour with bugs, but then I had a working prototype, and LightKD was not much harder. It was done in 2 days. So it was mostly the functionality, a lot of functionality, a lot of logic on top of the connection. So I guess that's what Litestack is able to do, bring up those features quickly. And I implement as much of them as possible in SQL land rather than in Ruby land for performance reasons from one side, and also for portability and like separation of concerns as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. I've kind of been blissfully unaware of SQL up to a point because Active Record kind of handles it for me. But for the client I'm working with at the moment, we've had to do some really advanced stuff, and I have been getting my hands dirty with SQL, and the power that it has blown me away a little bit. So yeah, I completely get your approach there. So yeah, just for personal curiosity, could you talk about how you did PubSub with just like SQL and database features without having something like Notify at your disposal?
Yeah. So the idea is when you do a database call, it in the traditional sense, it goes through the network to the server and back. But in the SQLite sense, it's just a method call to a local memory address, especially if you're looking at some page that is definitely in the cache, because it is like accessed, it's in the hot section of your data. So basically, it's a pulling mechanism. It's pulling happening from Ruby, like each thread that is subscribed to the PubSub would constantly pull the database and ask it for data. And in benchmarking, like for processes constantly writing and constantly pulling, I'm able to get around like 120,000 messages retired per second. Oh, wow. So yeah, this is and that's not on very high end hardware. So it is capable, and I was even able to do faster than some IPC cross process solutions that I tried at first as an optimization, but then it ended up like SQLite's faster still.
Yeah, I think when you eliminate the network from the equation, I think the performance speed up you get is just hard to comprehend, because you're also removing so much complexity from the call, right? You're not opening a network connection, you're not sending anything over a wire.
You're not copying data from buffers to like the network stack in the OS. There are so many things that are eliminated, and your life becomes a lot easier.
In some cases, I think I kind of feel this, because I've used some of the cloud databases, right? And so, even if I'm pulling a database on Linode and a server on Linode or DigitalOcean or whatever, pick your poison. Like those, I feel like I've felt that more than when I have, 2 virtual servers that I've set up in the same network, on DigitalOcean and stuff, because all of that stuff I think it's all software and it's fast, right? And
it is fast, but it's not free.
No, that's fair. It'll never be free. You don't get that for free, but yeah, I think there are different levels to this, right? I don't know that I'm completely convinced that, it's going to be that noticeable depending on what your setup is.
Yeah,
but it will be under other circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You should try actually to go through the all the benchmarks that I have for Litestack, by the way, on the GitHub repo. These are run against Postgres on the same machine.
Okay, so you put Postgres on the same machine and run it locally.
Yes, not even on a virtual server.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like all these are run through against Postgres on the very same machine, on the same address space, same everything.
Well, that changes my argument a little bit.
Yeah. So I like the point is, how much of the overhead, how much is the overhead compared to the actual work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it there is a spectrum here. Not all queries will be much faster on SQLite. Like if you're doing heavy IO, if you hit the disk, then they'll both be a lot slower. Then in that case, the savings that you had by not going through the network stack will be very unnoticeable. They will not exist, basically, because reading a single block from disk is much more expensive, like orders of magnitude more expensive. So like if you're talking about queries that are fulfilled from the page cache, then the difference would be really noticeable. If you have complex queries that will require disk access, then the difference will be less. But in no situation will SQLite will be slower than Postgres in read scenarios, given, of course, the query plan that was provided by both databases. Both have very advanced query planners, and they should produce in the most case, similar plans for the queries. But in case they're producing a similar plan, definitely SQLite will be either as fast or much faster than, like in a spectrum between fast and as fast and much faster than Postgres. That's read queries. Right,
So,
queries are a completely different story.
Right. So my question then is, because I'm looking at these benchmarks and it's pretty impressive. What if you have to reach it over the network, right? So what if you've got enough traffic to where you've spread your application servers out over multiple servers, and they'll have to hit the same source of truth, right? The same database that way. How does that change the equation?
So SQLite is not designed for this scenario. Like scaling out and connecting from multiple application servers to the same node, database node, is not what SQLite is designed for. SQLite is designed generally for vertical scaling rather than horizontal scaling. So you get a better, bigger machine or a VM, basically. And in that case, you can serve more from the same resources. But there's many attempts to actually enable this level of scaling. But then the point would be a little bit moot. Like, why not use Postgres? I'm working myself on a solution that is midway, so it only transmits writes, but all reads are local. So you have multiple nodes, each one has a complete copy of the database, and writes are distributed. I've written about that on my blog, and I still didn't open source it yet, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna open source it or maybe just try to build a service around it. But you get a copy of the database, a full copy of the database locally, and you can do all reads locally. So you get those benefits for reads, and you get slight extra latency for writes.
Yeah, but I mean, I have to admit, most of the time when I'm scaling, I just go into Linode or DigitalOcean or wherever I'm hosting, and I say, I want more RAM and a little more disk space, and it goes, okay, and then my website's down for a minute. So what you're talking about, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Because it simplifies your setup. Like, because once you go out of that, you have to consider, okay, what about like a load balancing? What if a node fails? What happens here? What happens there? Then you have so many moving parts, and they keep just growing exponentially as you add complexity to your system.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, I think in 2024, the amount of traffic you can serve with one single beefy server is just bloody unreal. I think horizontal scaling, if you need horizontal scaling, you will have enough money to pay people to get you off SQLite and onto Postgres.
Exactly. That's I think the point is, or the point that I'm trying to spread is, it is unwise to scale more than what you need initially in your small or starting projects. You can get a lot more value in like eliminating overheads and increasing performance and eliminating like moving parts by moving to an embedded solution. And SQLite is one heck of an embedded solution. It's an amazing solution. It just works. And my advice would be, don't focus on your infrastructure. Don't have DevOps. Focus on your application, and it will carry you a long way. And once you are in a position where you really need to move out of this, exactly what you said, Ayush. Like you have the money and the funds to move out of this. Either you're getting a lot of money, or you have enough external funding to get out of this, given that you have that amount of user activity.
Yeah, DHH actually said, I'm trying to find the tweet, but he said in a tweet that if you bought like I think it was 32 or 64 gigabyte Hetzner level thing, that you at this point could have run the entirety of Basecamp a few years ago, right? And so, I'm really kind of, I'm liking the way that this looks.
And then look at things now. Like Basecamp now is a beast. It's a huge application and so many subscriptions, but and they had to go through a lot of pain to scale that. But if you're starting something like that now, you have got like at least 5 to 6 years of growth within a single box.
Yeah, I think they said when they first started Basecamp back in like the mid 2000s or whatever, for a number of years they were running on one physical server, like not even virtualization back then, because this was 2004. So yeah, I'm fully on board with this just rent a VM approach.
Yeah, he said right here, he said you can rent a dedicated 48 core, 256 gig, 2 terabyte AMD EPYC server from Hetzner at $236 a month, or 236 euros a month. I've never had an application that got so much traffic that wasn't enough.
Yeah, and those 48 cores like translate to 96 cores in cloud speak. So yeah, that's a lot more than many applications, and a lot cheaper than what deployments we see on the cloud.
Yeah, it's crazy how much money you can save when you cut out complexity. Let's dig into a little bit just about SQLite and its use in a web application. So like putting Litestack and all the amazing stuff that does, let's put that to one side. And if I wanted to use SQLite directly with Rails, I know there are some gotchas. Backups being one main thing is, how do I back up and not lose my file? And the second thing is, I've been looking through the Campfire code base, which is obviously SQLite, the once product from 37 Signals. And the only thing I could find in there that was like specifically to do with SQLite in terms of like initialization and setup was something called a busy handler. So could you talk about what that is and why that's necessary?
Okay, so originally SQLite is configured for like really embedded use cases. So it is optimized for usage on a phone. And probably between the three of us, like we have like maybe at least 100 SQLite instances running at this very moment on our phones and computers. But this use case is completely different from the web application that requires multiple users accessing it at the same time as fast as possible. So there are a few caveats and a few knobs that should be set. What Litestack does, it completely does that by default when it's publishing its own like SQLite driver to Active Record. And there are other gems like Fractal Minded with Stephen Margheim. He goes, he has a lot of effort done in that area, and I think he is helping a lot, like the vanilla SQLite experience for Rails. By the way, one thing about Litestack is not just Rails. It's basically, you can use Litestack with Hanami, and use it with Sinatra, whatever framework you'd like. But let's get back to the configuration. So basically, what you need is the following. You need to ensure that you can do writes while you can do reads. The default configuration can only either do writes or reads. So you change the journaling mode from the default, which is delete, to while, which is write ahead log. So in that case, you can have a writer and a reader at the same time. Actually, an unlimited number of readers and a writer at the same time. That's the first configuration. The second thing is, which is a little bit tricky, like when connections are trying to capture the lock on the database, they will either succeed in getting the lock or fail because another process captured the lock. And if it fails, then it will return to you like, SQLite busy error. And hence we need to have a busy handler. And that busy handler, what will do, it will capture that error and not propagate it to the application, and it will try again later to capture the lock, which is basically what a central server like Postgres would do in locking. Of course, its locks are a lot more fine-grained than SQLite, which is like a single lock for the whole database. And then you also have something in the transaction type. SQLite has multiple transaction types. It has like the default, which is deferred transactions, and there's the immediate and the exclusive transaction. What we do also for the driver in to run a web application properly is to make all transactions immediate. What that means is a deferred transaction is a read transaction that you can midway upgrade to a write transaction. And the problem with that is that if you do this, and another transaction has, if you attempt to upgrade the lock and another transaction already has written to the database, this operation will fail with a busy, like SQLite busy error. But if you start with an immediate transaction, then you will have a write lock right from the beginning of the transaction. And then you will not have this error again anymore. So basically, for configuring SQLite, I think there are like 4 main things to do. Change the journaling mode to while, set a busy handler, and also configure your memory map to have like a shared cache across all processes rather than a cache per connection. And and that's it. And set your transactions to immediate. These are the 4 things that need to be done. Litestack does that automatically. There is also the SQLite gem, SQLite adapter gem from Stephen also does that. And I think some of these are being merged into the upstream SQLite driver for Active Record.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Adapter. Sorry.
So how do you make these changes? Do you do it at Ruby level, or do you have to run some SQL, or how's this configuration done?
Like in Litestack, it's done by overriding the SQLite driver and applying these at initialization, making sure all connections share these attributes.
So this is on the Rails end or the SQL end or whatever, not on the SQLite end.
It's on the SQLite adapter end or SQLite driver end, basically. So
you're not telling the database to do anything different. You're telling the application it has to manage its connection this way.
More or less, yeah. But at the end of the day, Rails itself is not aware of that. It's not doesn't see that this is happening. The changes that are going to go upstream will bring that knowledge to the Rails driver.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And regarding backups, like is Lightstream part of Litestack, or is that something different?
No, Lightstream is not part of Litestack. You can use Lightstream aside from using Litestack. Lightstream is a very nice tool. You can basically back up the database like incrementally and put that on S3. Like I personally use a different method, which I'm trying to spread as much as possible. But like in most situations, when you have a VPS or like a VM on something like Linode or DigitalOcean or anything, my recommendation would be to put the database on a replicated volume rather than on the VM directly. And in that case, you have the whole database living on the network, basically. And then if you have a file system that supports copy and write semantics, like betterfs or xfs, then you can have a backup of the whole database in under 2 milliseconds by just copying the file. And you can have as many backups of these as you want. Like you can have like a cron that is doing a backup every second, or all you need to do is open a read transactions, take a backup, and it will be consistent. I have also written about that. I have a blog post about backup strategies, and I explain some of these, including Lightstream, but I don't go deep in there. But I also explain some of the other options if you have like a cow file system.
So like if I didn't really care about having like every second of data like backed up, if I wrote like a cron job to back up the entire database file like every hour or something like that and upload it to, I don't know, S3 or some remote storage, that's basically a viable backup solution, right? Because it's just a file.
Yeah, but like Lightstream will be even better here because it does just an incremental update. Okay. So not every second, it just sends the changes. Or as I mentioned, on a replicated volume, then you have your data replicated across the data center. You don't need even S3. You just make a copy CP of the file, and it will be a copy on write, and it will if you have gigs of information, it will take like 2 to 4 milliseconds to copy.
Wow.
As long as all the transactions have completed.
No. It unrelated to transactions, because you open a read transaction and you copy. You don't care. You get a snapshot.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
You get a valid snapshot of the database.
Okay.
I'm planning to add some functionality in Litestack that would do that for you, like open the transaction and issue the write copy command. But it will not work if you don't have. It will not work efficiently if you don't have like a XFS or betterfs or ZFS.
Mm-hmm. So are there any like other gotchas that someone coming from a Postgres background, if I'm writing a Rails app or any web app, let's not say Rails, any web app with SQLite as the database, is there anything else I need to be aware of to not shoot myself in the foot?
Definitely. And that's the biggest concern when you're dealing with a database that is not, I like to call it a decentralized embedded database, because it doesn't have a server to coordinate actions, which is basically write performance and specifically things like creating an index on a large table and things like that. Because of its nature, SQLite will always take like a lock on the whole database whenever it's doing the write operation. So only one writer at a time. Keeping your writes small and tidy will mean that you get very fast writes. Like you can do like tens of thousands of writes per second on a SQLite database, and it will beat any other database. But if you have really large writes, any other database on a like a reasonable configuration, on the same configuration, like a single node. But if you have really large write transactions that do a lot of things, especially if you're trying to do things within the transaction, like going to a server or something, then you're hurting the SQLite performance a lot. And that would, while this will degrade other solutions as well, including Postgres and MySQL, they will be a lot more graceful at providing a chance for other transactions to run at the same time. SQLite will not be able to do so. So if you have like really large transactions that are trying to do a lot in writing, you should hopefully avoid that and break it down, or you will suffer from like queuing write requests because only one writer at a time. That's one thing. The other thing is some of these are unescapable, like creating an index. When you create an index, you have to wait until the index is finished, and it has to have like a snapshot, like a correct state of the database while being created. So it cannot allow other writers to write at the same time, even to other tables. So in that case, creating an index on a large table, a really large table, can actually take your database offline briefly.
And I think I don't know if I'm completely making this up or if I read it somewhere, but is like N+1 queries a feature rather than a bug when it comes to SQLite?
Yeah, it's not a feature per se. Basically, here's the thing: the overhead of running a query on SQLite is way less than running a call across the network stack, whether locally or remotely. So if you have N+1s, they're not as expensive. Of course, having running one query instead of like N+1 queries is cheaper, but the difference is not as big as with client-server database. It's a lot less. Like it could be like 50% more or something, depending on N. So in that case, if doing an N+1 would actually make your code nicer, just go for it. Because it's not as penalizing to your system as it is with something like MySQL or Postgres. The authors of SQLite, they use N+1 intentionally in some cases on their website and on the Fossil SCM system, because it makes things a lot easier. And
You're
it
hurting
makes
my head.
Encapsulation a lot easier.
Yeah,
Like
I had that beaten out of me, I swear.
Yeah, like think about it. It's an optimization. Like eliminating N+1 is an optimization.
Yes.
It's not something that would make your code look better.
Right.
Actually, it's the other way around.
Well, and it still works, right? It's just not as fast. So.
Yes. The idea in SQLite is it's not a big deal. It's not an issue. Like optimize for your code organization and encapsulation better.
Right.
Yeah, just a different mental model, isn't it? Because suddenly a database is just local.
Imagine if you cannot do partials in views. Like you'd have to have those real and do all the partials inline. It's exactly the same. Partials are more expensive, but you don't go there because then it's a nightmare code wise.
True.
Yeah.
So let's pick up on something we're actually briefly discussing before the show started. That so I have done a fair amount of work on search in Postgres, the Postgres native full text search, and for the client I'm working with at the moment, I've also done quite a lot of Elasticsearch. What is the search story on SQLite, and does Litestack have anything kind of building upon that?
Yeah, so SQLite has its own native search implementation, which is called FTS. There are multiple versions of that, 3, 4, and 5. 5 is currently the most maintained version. So SQLite does have an FTS story. The problem with the FTS story in SQLite is that it is slightly rigid. So you have to have a table that maps to another table in the database, and the mapping has to be static. If you change a column, you want to add it to the index, you have to rebuild the whole index. Things of that sort. In Litestack, we have a light search component which builds on top of the FTS5, but it also brings a lot of dynamism to it. So it actually implements like a dynamic layer. It's a lot. The interface is a lot like Melisearch. So if you use that, you do the same. You do define your index almost the same, but then all this is going down into an FTS5 database, and FTS5 module. I'm sorry. So there is a strong search story there, and the performance is amazing. Like you have to see. I have that blog comparing Melisearch to, and then you have that in the benchmarks as well on the repo. Melisearch to FTS5, and I kept repeating the benchmarks because I couldn't believe the results. Like email search has a lot more functionality, I would say. So vanilla FTS5 doesn't have, for example, like something like typo tolerance. And you need to add some modules in order to support multiple languages. But aside from multiple languages and typo tolerance, the performance difference is like, it has to be seen to be believed.
Okay. And is that like just in like performance as in time, the time it takes, or how's the performance with regards to accuracy of search results?
That's a different thing.
That's more abstract, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot harder to measure. But at the same time, it's a known quantity. Like working in NLP has like the industry has been doing that for long, and the tools to produce those are already there. So while typo tolerance is not there by default, you can actually implement that. There is stemming using the traditional stemmers from Snowball, like Porter and others, and these are mostly the stemmers that are used by almost all implementations if we're talking about Latin-based languages and Latin alphabets, basically, and then aside from that, it's just typo tolerance. That's the difference. So you get near search, you get phrase search, you get like you can mix and match and things like that. You have prefix search, all the known suspects, basically. So from a search quality perspective, I believe the biggest difference is typo tolerance and fuzzy support, which is basically the same. This is not there, but aside from that, you get everything that you would get with a typical search engine, like Elastic, Mealy, or Sphinx, or things like that.
That's a pretty solid story, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it to be that solid.
It is a very it's strange. Like the SQLite team, all two of them, they produce very, very solid software and components, and they build so many things from scratch. It's mind-boggling, and so I would love more people to actually use these.
So what I'm curious about is, and it's funny because you mentioned that you've been doing this since 2005, and I got into Ruby and Rails in 2006. So I've kind of seen a lot of the same stuff come and go. What changed, right? Because back then, SQLite, it was the default when you ran Rails without any flag for the database. But it was essentially understood that, you're probably going to replace this with another database. So what changed to the point where now people are realistically looking at this and going, I could run this in production?
Yeah, I guess this impression that SQLite is, just like something to start with, or even to use just for testing, was the norm, and it was understandable because many of the features that we're talking about, they happened over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So write ahead log mode was not there. I'm not sure if it was there in 2005. I guess it was, but many of the other features around it were not. And now you see how those features came together and made SQLite that rich. By the way, it also when you build it, it comes with a GeoPoly database, and like you can do like distance calculations and stuff like that, and distance-based indexes, and many other features. Like it has grown a lot and is now capable a lot, and I think people are starting to realize that I might not need a lot more than that, especially with the advancement in hardware that is happening in parallel. So you get these two. Now you can have like a single box that can do a lot, and a piece of software that is capable of like managing all your data and your data requirements. And what I'm trying to do with Litestack is to build that layer between both, like your data layer and your application, that is friction free, like no configuration required. You don't need to do anything.
Yeah, That makes sense. And it's kind of exciting just to see that, yeah, somebody could reliably come in and do a lot of this stuff. It's funny too, because, and then I'm working on a different layer than you are, but I've been working on pulling together Rails Composer, which I actually got the domain from Daniel Kehoe, and I've been working on pulling this together. But it's the same idea, right? It's, I need these areas of functionality in my application. And so, right, I pull in one gem and then I can just run generators and have it, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so, you know, with this, it's the same deal where it's, I pull in Litestack and then I immediately have the capabilities I need to run a modern Ruby on Rails app.
Yeah, almost all your data requirements are already fulfilled. Go build a great application and don't bother about the infrastructure. Don't pay for DevOps. Like, eliminate all these points of like pain, headache, and money spending.
So are there people out there currently running their production apps with Litestack?
Some I know, yes. And some are running Litestack on staging. Like, I know of a large Ruby app that their environment, staging environment, were switched to Litestack overnight without even the developers knowing, and they didn't know except after wondering why everything is much faster.
That is a sales pitch and a half.
I was going to say, you're making me feel stupid for not trying this.
Yeah, I think the idea is, if you're building something and starting, it's really unwise to add to go on a more complex path. You should go with the least resistance path until it starts resisting you, and hopefully it will never resist you. It will never show you that friction.
Yeah, you're speaking my language here. I mean, this is where, and I picked some of this up from reading Ayush's book, the Rails and Hotwire Codex, where essentially, right, he walks you through. I mean, the first, third, almost half of the book is, you know, building the authentication piece. But, you know, I got through it and I was just like, this is not as hard as I thought. And right, I kind of get all of the niceties that I want out of it because I understand it. And, you know, anyway, it appeals to me in that same way because I'm looking at it and going, okay, you know, the underlying engine for this thing, which is essentially rack and the database, you know, that's stuff that I don't want to fiddle with, right?
Yeah.
And I can just rest everything on top of it.
Exactly, pushing that complexity away from you and hiding it completely. Versus exposing every complexity. Like, if you're trying to deal with the traditional app, you'll have to think of many things, including like, where should I put my cache? Where should I put my do I have a single Redis instance for all of these, or do I have to split them? And how? And now that I'm scaling anyways, how do I scale these components as well? Because you can add application servers, but then your database will need to scale. The nice thing with vertical scaling is that you scale both together. You don't scale everything, but with like a client server architecture, you have to separately scale each one.
Yeah.
And it does so again, coming from my Postgres brain, like, because that's what my background is in. So two questions again, trying to find equivalents for Postgres. Is there like a JSON-B column in SQLite or an equivalent? It has JSON-B.
Yes, but it's a different format. It's SQLite's own format, so you cannot get a JSON-B record from here and just put it there. You have to convert it to JSON first.
Yeah.
But it has a JSON-B format,
and
you
can
it's
like
quite fast.
You have to deserialize it and then serialize it into the other database.
But almost all the JSON functions that you'd expect are there for both the JSON text format and the JSON-B format.
Oh wow! So you can like query for stuff that's inside a JSON.
Yes, and you can create an index on a JSON field, and you can. Yeah.
Nice. And another thing I use quite often, especially to like just like filter stuff in a UI, is like and I like queries, and I use trigram indexes in Postgres to speed those up. So yeah, we spoke about full text search, but like, is trigram a thing in SQLite?
One of the tokenizers available by default is the trigram tokenizer in FTS5. So you can have a trigram.
Okay, and that'll help with with
Yes.
like and highlight queries. Nice.
Exactly.
Why don't I use SQLite again?
So
Yeah.
here's another. Oh, go ahead. What were
Yeah,
you gonna
I
say?
wanted to mention that I also have an extension for SQLite that uses roaring bitmaps. So you can create facets for your search results. Like you have like a search index and you want to generate distributions of results. So you have like, you get, you're searching books, for example, and you want to see in that search how many of those books are in which categories. And this can be done using roaring maps in like a blink of an eye, like under 10 milliseconds. You get so many statistics, stuff like you see on Amazon. Like those are things, and how many of those are red, and how many are blue, how many are at that price, how many are at that price. All those things can be done like almost automatically in SQLite.
Very cool. So I'm wondering, you mentioned that there was a company that switched over to Litestack overnight. And I'm wondering what that process looks like. I mean, I would imagine that, kind of the queuing and things like that, but, are probably pretty easy, right? Because the job's either been run or it's not. So, pull the job from something else. But I'm looking at like my data on some of my apps, and some of it's kind of hairy. And so I'm wondering, okay, what would it take for me to go in and move
What do you mean by
everything over
hairy?
Lightstack? My models are kind of messy.
Aren't they SQL in table like tables?
Yeah,
with
that's
data in
true.
them?
I guess it's the state of my models that I'm not happy with, not necessarily the state of the data.
Yeah, that's one level above
Yeah.
the problem we're dealing with. It's completely opaque for the models.
So you just
you
export and then import? Or
that's an option, yes.
you get a SQL dump somehow, and
you can do a SQL dump and just copy that over, or you can do a what I'm trying to work on is to do an import export at the active record level, so that you can easily point it to that database, and then the data gets migrated with active record semantics. So any potential compatibility issues are just washed away.
Oh wow, that would be cool.
Yeah, like active record does have this machinery already. We just need to glue it together.
Right.
Or you can dump. By the way, you can dump in active record, like format basically, and restore after you change the driver.
Yeah. The only other thing that I'm thinking about with my setup is, so I've been using Kamal to deploy, and it puts the traffic load balancer. The way I have it set up, I have a traffic load balancer in front of two application nodes. So effectively, I would have to get rid of one of those. I wouldn't need traffic anymore, right?
Yes. But if they are on the same machine, then you can have a volume.
Right. I can
you
just
will have
set
a volume
anyway for the Docker containers. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can share it. But it's much more straightforward to just have one.
Yeah.
The nice thing about having two is it makes zero downtime deployments easier.
Right.
But it is doable still with one. And that's something that's a topic that I want to address at one point.
You can address it now if you want.
No, I mean, address with implementation
code.
wise. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like maybe a light deploy or something.
That'd be interesting.
Because almost not all, but almost all modern application servers support like zero downtime deployments,
right,
and zero downtime restarts. So you definitely lose some of the WebSocket connections, but that's it. Even other connections can remain up.
Well, especially if you're using something like Kamal with a Docker base, right? You just wait till the other I wanted to say machine, the other container is running.
Yeah.
and then it's okay. Now everything new goes to this one, and when the other one's done, you just kill it.
And I think that's one of the nice things about this setup, that many of the issues that people thought they gonna face with similar setups are actually addressed. And I would definitely recommend giving that smallish stack a go, and then see if it works for you. And if you're starting something new, just don't bother. Don't bother with the complexity. Start with that.
Is there a use case where you would say don't start with SQLite or Litestack?
Let me think. So maybe if there is a use case where there is something that is someone that is writing huge records in a database, and
what do you mean by huge records?
Like we're talking gigabytes, maybe. Some people do that. Some people do that. And that's like the core of what they're doing. Then definitely you need something that can spread that data over a larger surface in terms of files, if you're doing like a network, or even a distributed database eventually. But SQLite will not be the database for you. This is not, or not necessarily gigabytes, or you're like trading in that area, like 800 megabyte files, still very large. Other than that, I think it could be a case-by-case basis, but if you also have an application where so many people are writing at the same time, something big, relatively, that or doing like complex write transaction, then SQLite is a no-go. But if you have so many people doing smallish transactions, SQLite is more than enough. It would be even faster than the typical solutions. So yeah, I would say, like, you'd need to have a strong case against using SQLite to not use SQLite.
So do you see this becoming kind of the thing that people reach for in the future by default?
I hope that would be the case. Like, that's the future I see. That, yeah, like why go through the complex route if I have something simpler? And I think it just makes sense to simplify things. Like, this industry has suffered a lot from breeding complexity. Like, we've been doing really, really complex setups, especially in the front end and infrastructure domains, just because people wanted to play with different stuff. And I think it's about time we, and it's helping that the VC money is drying. So I guess it's about time to realize that we need to build applications, not build resumes, and focus on what we're trying to deliver, the value that we're trying to deliver, that rather than this is my stack, this is my front end like stack and things like that. This is not what people should be bothered with. And if your engineering team is actually focused on what type of stack they're building, I've consulted with a lot of teams, and I've seen teams that would talk to me about the technology they're using rather than what value they're delivering or building. Then you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, it's not fun. Like seeing really complex stacks, and you ask how many users do you have, and they tell you we have 200, and then why bother? Like, why all this then? Why not focus on actually getting the business off the ground and running with it? And once you have 10 million users, maybe we can talk. Like, I hosted millions of users on embedded databases, and like I had a situation when a friend was asking me about their hosting costs because they ballooned. They were paying, at the time, it was a lot, like $2,500 a month at AWS.
Oh, wow.
And they had almost half our user base, or even less. And they were asking, and it was a gaming startup, both of us. And they were asking how much we pay every month. And I was really, really like embarrassed to tell them that we're paying $75. So yeah, people need to realize they can get a lot of value by removing complexity and removing redundancy and removing abstractions and indirection.
Right.
It's pretty mad that computers are like an order of magnitude faster than they were 20 years ago, but
Yeah.
software just seems slower than it's ever been.
Yeah.
It's stuck where it were, like because computers are being faster, software is getting faster, like naturally, but it's not trying to do things differently. It's not, no one has come up and said, like, let's make use of the capacity now that we have in a single machine.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this was kind of came to me when DHH was doing his keynote at Rails World last year, and he points out, we have solid queue and solid cache because disk speeds have grown in this way, right? And he was basically pointing out, yeah, we're going to take advantage of this, and yeah, it drove home to me that the limiting factor isn't the technology, it's the mindset, right? Because I'm still stuck in, when I started programming in 2000, well, I started programming in high school in the 90s, but when I started doing Rails apps in 2006, I'm looking at it and going, oh, I've got to account for all this stuff. And so I have to go wrangle all of these things to make it work. And so the limitation was the way I thought about applications being built, not the hardware or the technology that was available to me. And I think that's what you're saying, Mohammed.
Yes, exactly. Like people like we have been conditioned to do things a certain way. Like you need cache, you put a Redis instance. You need a job queue, you put a Redis instance and the job runner and stuff like that.
Yep.
And people think this is the best they can get. And I would challenge anyone. I want to see a faster read, cache read performance from any adapter for Rails than Litestack's cache. Of course, solid cache is fast as well, but it's not as fast because it relies on active record. But once you hit SQLite, there is nothing faster than this. Like you're reading literally from memory. It's an order of magnitude faster than a Redis adapter.
Okay, hang on. Time out. You're saying that you built the light cache and is the queuing this way as well?
Yes.
So you're not relying on active record.
No,
you're
not at all.
just going straight to the database and going, what's in the cache?
Exactly. Because
wow.
because the nice thing about Rails is that it has these really nice interfaces for active job and for active resource cache and for a light cable, for active action cable. I'm sorry. And what you do is you provide an adapter that does the job, rather than going one level up and relying on active record. That you just deliver the functionality directly.
Right, because you're using SQLite.
Yeah, it ends up being very fast, like really very fast. Not much faster than, of course, having the active record abstraction on top of you. And active records buys you a lot of things, like distributed databases and having multiple database for the same the same application talking to multiple databases and sharding and stuff like that. You don't need that for SQLite. Yeah, it's one database on the same machine, so you don't need all of this.
You're making me think.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of change your mental models once they get set. Like my background is was in mobile development. When I started working as a professional software developer, I started off as an iOS and Android developer. This was 2014, and I only switched to Rails in 2020. And I remember, like, when you're in a mobile app, going to the disk is considered slow. So when you launch the app, you basically load up whatever you can in memory. And if you're going to go to the disk, you have to kind of really think about the code you're writing because you don't want to lock up the UI. So I had this drilled in me, going to the disk is slow. So when I came to Rails and I was trying to understand Russian doll caching in Rails, I couldn't understand why there was a benefit, because we still had to go to the database to get the updated at value of the record. I couldn't understand that in a web context, rendering the HTML is the slow part. It took me months, and I'm not exaggerating, months to change that mental model. So I
Yes.
completely get that people have been doing this for decades, have this model set about how you structure an app with a database server and stuff. And now they're just like, it's really hard to just change that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the really nice things about switching to Litestack, or not nice actually, the bad things about switching to Litestack, that it suddenly highlights how slow your front end is, like the rendering path, like the view layer. Basically, it's really highlighted because you eliminate a lot of the bottlenecks at the database layer, and now your core bottleneck is rendering, whether you're rendering JSON or rendering like HTML in your app. So it just highlights it very, very fast, and then you now have to deal with this level if you want to keep up with how fast the backend has become. I think the other thing here is, like, Rails has a lot of, or Ruby itself had a lot of progress lately in the JIT compiler domain. So Ruby code is gonna run faster, and it is getting faster and faster, which is really nice. We're looking at like 50% plus speed improvements.
Well, depending on what your app is doing, but yes.
But yeah, I'm looking at something like Lobster, for example. It's almost 50% faster in the benchmarks that the Shopify team is sharing, which is really nice. It's a full-fledged Rails application. Now imagine this is one bottleneck, computation. Now the other bottleneck is I/O. Now imagine if you also get even a nicer boost in that regard. So actually, by the way, moving to Litestack doesn't just improve performance. Like, think about your situation when you have two VMs talking to a single database. You'd probably end up with one VM, the same size, and getting almost the same performance from your application, especially if you don't have a huge bottleneck in the view layer. If you do, then yeah, you need basically as computational power as you had in the previous setup, but still you're saving a lot of cycles that you otherwise would have wasted in the communication over the network stack. You'd save that for other computational needs.
Very cool. We're getting toward the end of our time. Is there anything else you want to add, or maybe just summarize where we're at with SQLite and Litestack?
Yeah, so I would say there is a big update coming soon, hopefully, like the next version of Litestack, which will have the LiteKD officially released, and I'm hoping also to bring one other major advancement, which is concurrent queries in Ruby. One of the issues of SQLite is that it's a C extension. And C extensions, basically, as you're running C code, it takes over the Ruby process, doesn't allow other things to happen while it is running. So that results, if you're doing a read query or a write query, whatever the type of the query you're doing, if it's a long one, it will lock the process until it's finished. And the thing that I'm trying to bring forth in the current next version is the ability to run multiple queries, even in a single threaded application if you're using fibers, or in different threads if you're using threads. So they will run concurrently next to each other and allow the application to be a lot more responsive, even if you hit a really slow query.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to also make the other aspects of the story solid, deployment, backups, and if that once we're there, I really think it makes a lot more sense to go with the simpler solution. Regardless of what you're doing, it makes a lot more sense to go with the simpler solution, and hopefully this will be the simpler solution.
Nice. All right.
Okay, one final thing I want to say, like I'm really I'm offering basically free consultation for anyone who wants to migrate to Litestack. So just ping me, and I'm happy to help and help you like gain the performance benefits and an opportunity for me to learn also about what could happen in the wild in the process.
Nice.
How do people reach you for that?
I'm available on X, so you can DM me at any time, and also you can send me an email. I'm not sure if I can share my email here or not. Yeah, basically it's oldmo, same handle like X, at gmail.com.
What were you saying, Ayush?
I was asking the exact same question as you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do our picks. Ayush, you want to start us off?
I hadn't thought about this. I'd completely forgotten we do these. Do you want to go first while I'm thinking?
Sure, I'll throw a few out. So it's been a few weeks since we recorded, just because life is insane. Yeah, so I played a game with some of my friends that I hadn't played before. It's a really, really simple game. It's called 6nim. It's got a bunch of other names too, so you might have played it. I think it's also called like Take 5.
Not sure.
Let me look it up on Board Game Geek. Yeah, it's called Take 5 or Category 5 or anyway. So what you do is you have numbered cards. It's super simple. Board Game Geek has a weight of 1.19, which means that it's a casual game that is pretty simple. And they say that eight and older can play it. That's probably fair. It'll play up to 10 players, 2 to 10 players. I think it took us a half hour to play a full round. Anyway, the cards are numbered 0 or 1. I can't remember if it starts at 1, but it goes up to 100. No, it goes past 100. But anyway, so what you do is everybody plays a card out face down. You flip the card over, and then the lowest card gets put out on top of the stack that it most closely matches to, right? So if the top card on any of the 4 stacks you've got in front of you is 7 and you put out a 10, unless the 8 or 9 are on top of any of the other stacks, you're going to put it on the 7, right? And then the next one goes and so on. You take the stack if you play the 6th card on the stack. And then the rest of the game is let's say that the lowest one is a 7 and you play a 3. Then you get to pick which stack you take, and you're trying to get the fewest points possible. And different cards, different numbers are worth a different number of points. Some of the cards are worth 1, some are worth 2, some are worth 3, and some are worth 5. And so you just play it till all the cards are gone, and then you tally up your score. That's the whole game. It was really fun. Just kind of an interesting filler game. And so my first pick is going to be 6nim. I'll put a Board Game Geek link and an Amazon affiliate link into the chat or into the comments. A couple of other picks. My son and I went and saw A Quiet Place Day 1 last night, and it was good. I've only seen A Quiet Place. I haven't seen A Quiet Place 2. But so it was good. It wasn't as good as A Quiet Place, but it was definitely, something that was worth seeing in theater. I guess the only other thing that I'm just going to let people know about, if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram or something like that, I'm going to be posting videos about doing AI. So I've been pulling a lot more AI stuff into Top End Devs. I got really inspired by the episode we did with Obi Fernandez about building AI agents. And so this is not on the level of, hey, I'm going to train all this data into a model and then use my model. It's a level above that where it's, okay, I've got a large language model. What can I make it do for me?
Yeah, I'd like to have... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted just to have a shout out for Obi. Like he's been one of my Ruby heroes since so long. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess he's getting ready to release the Rails 8 way whenever that comes out. Rails 8 does, which should be in a couple of months. But yeah,
I think Rails 8 is going to be early next year, because I think 7.2 is going to come out like now, or maybe it's just out.
Yeah, I know that they were looking to try and get it out around Rails World, which is going to be in September, but I don't know what the timelines look like now because I haven't talked to David in a while. But anyway, Yeah, so he got me excited about that. I've kind of been looking at Olympia AI, which is the company that he put together. But I'm looking at building an AI assistant or set of assistants that effectively are focused on podcasters, right? So it's, it does a lot of the work of, I want so many of these kind of episodes and so many of those kind of episodes, or, hey, go invite such and such a person, go invite Mohammed to come talk about Litestack, right? So it's smart enough to go make some web calls, go scrape the internet, go find your email address, and then send you an email, right? Kind of thing. Or, hey, we didn't record this week. Put out an episode that we haven't, re-released within the last year, right? And so then it can go and it can say, well, these are the top ones, and right, it's smart enough to figure all that stuff out. Or even to the level of, Ayush said this, and then he kind of thought better of it afterward, right? It's like, I shouldn't have said that because my client doesn't want me to reveal these certain things about, right? So I can go tell the bot, hey, go take out when Ayush talked about this, and this, right? And then it'll go in and actually have the tools to go and extract it, right? And my editor does a terrific job, but it'd be interesting just to see how far we can take it with that stuff, right? Where it's cleaning up that kind of a thing, right? Just tell it, hey, we recorded a new episode, so it logs into StreamYard and downloads the files and kind of does some preliminary cleanup on them, right? So anyway, it's that level of stuff. I think it'd be way fun. So I'm working on that, and then I'm pulling together, because I know a lot of other people want to learn it. I'm looking to do a boot camp where we use a lot of these tools, right? Down to some of the LLMs like the Llama 3 LLM or something, right? Where it's, okay, I've got a baseline thing that I have to train some, or maybe I am just going straight to GPT-4 or Gemini or some other thing, right? And just having it do the work for me because it is capable. And so just working all that in, and, just over 3 months, just help people go from not knowing anything about AI all the way up to, okay, now I can add these features to my application. So keep an eye out for that, mostly on social media. And yeah, I'm also looking at putting together an AI summit in September. So
that's awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And then the last pick I have, and I think I'm going to connect it to a GoFundMe or something like it, is I would very much, now that next year's going to be the last year for RailsConf, I would like to put something together like RailsConf. And I know we have Rails World, and they kind of move it around. I guess they're doing North America and then not North America. And so I would like to alternate opposite them, right? So that there's a conference in North America every year, and then there's a conference somewhere else out in the world, right? And just see if we can get more access. But there is no way I can afford to cover things like an expo hall or things on my own. And so if you all are interested in something like that and would like to contribute, I mean, obviously we're going to, at certain levels of helping us out, give you tickets or shout outs or, any number of other things, and I'm thinking, kind of base level, maybe you get a ticket, a little higher level, you get lifetime tickets. Another level you get sponsorship at a certain level. So anyway, if you're interested, I did buy the domain. I think it was railsexpo.com. So go to railsexpo.com in like a week or two after we recorded this, and I should have something up where it tells you what we're looking at for contributions and things like that. So anyway, that's all the stuff. I kind of wanted to get those out there just because those are things that I want to put together for the community that I think people are interested in. Ayush, what are your picks?
So I've got two both non-technical picks this week. I reread a book from my childhood a few weeks ago. It's called Hovercar Racer by Matthew Riley. And yeah, it's just one of those books that it kind of shaped my teens a little bit. Like, it has a quote that I absolutely love, and I loved at the time as well, which is to err is human, to make the same mistake twice is stupid. And I pretty much reread the book just to try and remember what the context of that quote was, because I remember the quote, but I couldn't remember any of the context around it.
Right.
But yeah, I enjoyed reading it again. It's a book aimed more at a probably a teen audience, but even now in my 30s, I still quite enjoyed it, despite it being quite far fetched at times. But yeah, so that's one pick. The other pick is a musical pick, which I don't think I've done for a while. It's a band called Solstice, who I've been a little bit obsessed with, unhealthily obsessed with for the last couple of months. I basically had their the last two albums, on repeat throughout my workday since about June, like start of June, which is just a bit mad, and I haven't got bored of them yet. So yeah, if you're into any kind of rock music at all, I'd highly recommend checking out Solstice. Their last two albums are called Light Up and Shia, SIA. Yeah, those are my two picks.
Cool. How about you, Mohammed? You got some picks for us?
Not really. I'm not sure if that is interesting enough, but as we were arranging to get into this discussion, I was working on concurrent index creation for SQLite, which will allow indexes to be run in the background. I have now a set of features that are not open source yet, and I'm hoping I'll be able to build a service around that soonish and allow you to host your Ruby SQLite powered applications for a fraction of the current costs at a much higher performance than people are accustomed to, without having to deal with like Docker images, Kemal, or things like that. Even simpler, like more like Heroku on steroids.
Very cool. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for coming. People find you on socials as Old Mo, just to remind people of that. And till next time, max out, everybody.